Now, in other world news, vote counting today is underway in South Africa following the country's most competitive election since the end of apartheid. Early results suggest the African National Congress could lose its majority in parliament after 30 years in power. If confirmed, that would mark a watershed in South Africa. The ANC has been in government since Nelson Mandela swept to power in 1994 at the end of white minority rule. Well, let's get the very latest for you live from Cape Town. Anne Wenzel's our correspondent. She joins me on the programme. Anne, I understand you've been watching the count pretty closely today and that the Electoral Commission has had new numbers around half an hour ago or so. What can you tell us?
The Electoral Commission just briefed the media around 4 o'clock, and one of the things, if I may extrapolate, looking at the media contingent and how they responded, and that media contingent at the briefing being largely South African, I'm extrapolating their attitude out to the rest of South Africa and saying it's getting a little fidgety. People are looking at the numbers, and I think one of the reasons is, as the IEC themselves said, normally within 24 hours, about 80% of the vote has been counted. But this time we've had 3 ballot papers. So this has added to some of the issues and some of the delays. That is besides, of course, the delays at some of the voting stations. And by 3 p.m. today, there were a few voting stations where counting was still underway. The IEC did not say how many. They just said a few. When it comes to what is happening with the ANC so far, with over 14% of the votes counted and having gone through the sorting and the auditing process, the ANC is currently at around 43%, and followed by the DA, the EFF, and then the MK party, not surprisingly, the party of former President Jacob Zuma at number 4, and the Democratic Alliance currently, let me try that again, the Patriotic Alliance at number 5, and they're the ones who are posing a challenge to the Democratic Alliance, which is currently lying at number 2. But when it comes to the ANC, it's going to be a question of how many votes are they missing to go into what type of coalition. So we're looking at, if they come in at under 50 and over 45, they could potentially join up with smaller parties, and then they'd still actually have more power. But if they go over that number, 45% and more, or rather 45% and less, 44, 43, then the power sharing becomes much more intricate.
And as you say, Anne, look, counting is ongoing. It's still pretty early. But if these numbers continue to pan out as they are at the moment, if things continue to look bad for the ANC, what would that mean for the party that has held such a central place in South African democracy since the end of apartheid?
Well, it's 30 years of ANC rule. And I think one of the reasons that the ANC is in the predicament that it's in at the moment is it doesn't know how to listen to external voices. And when I say that, I'm using the South African public as the external voice, because the big issues where the public and the voter, being the same person or entity, feels underrepresented and not listened to and not heard, because they're not seeing the change that they are asking for and that they've been promised. Jobs, where are the jobs? The issues with electricity, the issues with crime, the issues with the lack of access to health and education. These are things, they're not new. They're not new. They're the same issues over and over again, and there's been no change. And this is the huge problem, is this disconnect between the ANC and the voting public, whereas the ANC has always been led by basically the party, and they need to be led by the people.
Anne Wenzel for us in Cape Town. Thanks very much.